We're starting the conversation.
Sorry.
Okay. So I pose these questions after our technical difficulties. If you had your druthers, what, if anything, would you want to be able to do on these properties? What kinds of features and elements would the properties have? How can we use these places to benefit our town? And ultimately, how can we use this space better to serve our community? But before we move forward, the town supervisor, Jim Safranco, is going to speak about the process so far and clarify how we got here. Mr. Safranco, that was your cue.
Muted, I asked.
Oh, hey, I was muted. Boy, I was halfway done. Hi, this is Jim Safranco. I'm the town supervisor in Olive. I want to welcome everyone to the Boiceville Visioning Project. Thank you all for joining us. And I would like to thank Lori and our community planners and organizers of tonight's listening session, Cynthia Nicotin from the Brunel Sculpture Park in Boiceville, and Karine Dutel and Nadej Hosseini from KAN Design in Kingston for working with us tonight. And a special thank you to our students, Abeline Edelman, Joni Huber, and Sophia Odato, who are working with the planners to create a vision for the use of flood buyout properties in the town of Olive. Tonight, we have an opportunity to share our ideas and our visions as to the use of these properties acquired by the town of Olive in Boiceville. These properties include the former Boiceville Florist, the log home complex, 2 private residences, the site of the former Trail Motel, and the Stuckey property located behind the IGA. All of these properties are located in the FEMA designated 100-year floodplain and suffered substantial damage in 2011 during Hurricane Irene. The Olive Flood Advisory Committee, made up of local residents, was formed in 2014 and, working with Voight Engineering, completed a local flood analysis, and we call it the LFA, for the town of Olive in 2016. The LFA identified areas of flood hazards in the town and proposed flood mitigation strategies to address these areas of concern. The Boiceville properties we're discussing tonight were all identified in the LFA as properties in need of flood mitigation due to previous loss and their location in the 100-year floodplain, where flood inundation is a great risk. The 100-year floodplain identifies the areas affected and the water depth that can be anticipated during a 100-year storm event. The 100-year storm event has a 1% chance of occurring annually. However, climate change has caused these 100-year storms to occur much more frequently. So what does the LFA tell us the 100 storm will look like in the 100-year floodplain in Boiceville? In a 100-year storm, the Boiceville firehouse would be under 5.2 feet of water. The log home complex across 28 would be under 6.6 feet of water, and the Boiceville market under 7 feet of water. Hurricane Irene in 2011 was a 75-year storm event and caused great harm to our community. In 2017, the town supervisor received several letters from the owners of these properties describing the horrific tragedies and financial loss they suffered through Hurricane Irene. Most of the properties had been for sale on the market for several years before Hurricane Irene, unable to sell due to the potential for flooding and the increasing cost of flood insurance required by owners who have a mortgage. They all enthusiastically wanted to sell out by participating in the New York City flood buyout program. The town board examined all the flood data and proposals in the LFA with the Flood Advisory Committee, and in 2017 determined that the most cost-effective and viable solution was to allow these properties to be acquired through the New York City funded flood buyout program, with the exception of the Trail Motel. the Trail Motel previously qualified for and was granted a FEMA buyout. The New York City funded flood buyout program requires a willing seller, a willing buyer, and a willing town to allow participation in the program. No one is coerced into participation in the program. Once all parties agree to participate in the program, the properties were appraised based on the market value of comparable properties located outside the floodplain. Example of one property that was probably in the most difficult financial straits due to the flooding of Hurricane Irene was the Landmark Restaurant. Unfortunately, the owners were not able to participate in the New York City funded flood buyout program as the program had not yet been initiated. Tragically, the owners lost their generational business due to the bank in foreclosure. It has since been purchased by a real estate company in Kingston. They have been unable to rent out the restaurant due to the flooding possibilities and are unable to make substantial repairs due to the FEMA's restrictions on development in the floodplain. They tried to make a go of it in the floodplain and have since applied for the flood buyout program, all due to the financial difficulties of being located in the 100-year floodplain. So as sad as it is to see these properties being dismantled and the landscape of our hamlet changing, the reality is it is not feasible for most businesses and residents to sustain themselves in the floodplain in Boiceville. It's unfortunate as these properties hold many dear memories for many of our friends and neighbors in our community. Some properties have chosen to do nothing and stay in Boiceville, as is their right. But the threat of climate change with increasing amounts of rainfall in each storm make this a very difficult decision. Each property owner has their own unique financial or personal circumstances to take into consideration when making this decision. Some LFA designated anchor businesses may have options to relocate or remediate their building for flooding. But it is ultimately up to the property owner to pursue these options if they choose, with the funding clearly made available to them. So here we are today. We have several town-owned properties that are now or soon to be vacant in Boiceville. We have this opportunity to look forward rather than back. This is due to a generous grant from the Laura Jane Musser Fund to plan a vision for the use of these properties by reaching out and hearing from our community. So I'd like to remind everyone tonight that we are here to listen to the residents of Olive and hear your ideas. This is not the place for commenting on decisions made in the past, but an opportunity to move forward. Any discussion about the past board decisions in Boiceville is a distraction to our goal tonight and will not be permitted. So I want to thank you again for joining us. And I'd like to now introduce Karine Dutel from KAN Landscape Design in Kingston to explain who KAN is and the amazing work they do. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Hi, everybody. My name is Karine Dutel. So I'm a designer, and I work with Nadège Ossini and Cynthia Nikitin, who are here tonight with us. And so our firm, KAN Landscape Design, so is located in Kingston. And personally, I live in West Shirley. And my son graduated from Montero, and my daughter is actually currently in 12th grade. So I'm still very present here. So I'm going to show you like what we do. So what we do is like we create a youth-led design project that empower local youth to become stewards and leaders in their community through a tailored curriculum and educative process that gathers professional and community members in designing a public space together. So what you're seeing here is Pine Street Africa Burial Ground, and we worked with local organizations, with R&B, the Kingston Land Trust, Growing Film, the City of Kingston, and the YMCA Farm Project, and their amazing team of teens. Through a 5-month curriculum, they met with archaeologists, historians, architects, artists, local organizations, and community leaders. And they did lots of community engagement like we are doing tonight. And the team, we can see at the end, successfully presented their final design. And I also wanted to show you another project in Kingston. This is a Y Park. It's in the YMCA in Kingston. And this has been done also with the youth engagement. and with a community child. This is a native natural playground with native plantings and stuff like this. Now it's to you, Cynthia.
Hey, hello everyone. So I'm Cynthia Nikitin, and yes, I do own the Brunel Park, which is the Brunel Sculpture Garden with those wonderful totem poles that are sort of an iconic emblem of the town of Olive. And my husband and I actually purchased that property in 1997. And during that time, I was working for most of my career with a company called Project for Public Spaces. So my career is in doing community-based planning, working with residents and business owners and stakeholders to envision how they want their communities to look, to create ideas for how to empower communities to shape the public realm. And what's exciting for me is I've done this work like in hundreds of communities and all over the world. And I don't have to sit on a plane for 12 hours to fly to Korea to do this work. I can just basically walk down the hill and be here in 12 minutes. So this is the first time in my entire career I've actually ever had the privilege and opportunity to work where I live. And I'm really thrilled. It's really fabulous. I've had a lot of experience working with small towns and rural communities. I ran a program for the National Endowment for the Arts for 6 years called the Citizens Institute on Rural Design, helping communities with similar challenges to what Olive is facing come up with a vision and a strategy and proposals and plans for moving forward. I'm also currently working with Sustainable Hudson Valley. They are working on a regional climate action strategy for the Mid-Hudson Valley, which is in response to the New York State Climate Leadership and Climate Adaptation Act. And we are working on a resilience guide for communities that we hope to publish in the next couple of months to help communities understand what steps they can take now to prepare for and adapt to climate change. So as Jim said, the town got a grant from the Laura Jane Musser Fund, and Karine, Nadej, and I applied to be hired by the town to do this work, and happily we were. And based on Karine's experience working with students, back in August, we approached the school administration at the Ontario Central School District, pitching this after-school program to them that would engage working with students and having the students sort of undertake the project with Karine, Nadej, and I, and Lori as facilitators. And they were very, very supportive. So we're really appreciative to the Ontario Central School District for making this partnership happen. So I'm going to set the focus of our conversation. I know Jim sort of talked about the parcels and sort of a little abstractly in terms of what the impacts were, what does that floodplain look like, et cetera. So I'm going to show you some maps and some images. So these are the images of the 100-year floodplain in Boiceville. The image on the left is a close-up of the image on the right. And so you can see how much of our hamlet is within the floodplain. Next. Okay. So here we have the parcels in dark blue are 3 of the 4 that we're talking about. And I'm going to show more images. So we're just sort of zooming in from 10,000 feet down to 6 feet. The parcels in light purple are engaged in the application process for the buyout, and the pink parcels are eligible for the program. The light green parcels you see there are owned by the New York City DEP. The purple line outlines the 100-year floodplain, which we saw on the previous slide. And hold on to your hats, the heavy purple line marks the 500-year floodplain. Next slide. So here we have circled the parcels that are the subject of this process. There are other parcels that Supervisor Sirfranco spoke about that will become available to the town at a later date. So we see our work with you as a phased process, but it's really hard to imagine sort of what to do with an entire hamlet. So we're really just focusing on the 4 parcels that have been cleared, that the town owns, that we have control over. Next slide. And here they are. So we have named the parcels for the purpose of this project or for this evening. These are not the final names. But what we're looking at is we really have these 4 lovely little pocket parks. You know, each lot does have its own special features and characteristics and feel, you know, to them. And we're thinking of them as sort of individual little parks, but that are tied together in some way to be more of a collective. Next slide. So here is, we call this the Willow Lot. This was formerly the Alta Log Home Lot, and it is 1.3 acres in size. I think it takes about 30 seconds for someone to walk across 1 acre. It is sort of the largest lot that we have that is fully accessible. Next slide. We call this the picnic lot. This was formerly the Daniels property. And I just wanted to know how many of you have known that there are picnic tables there, that there have been picnic tables there all summer. And how many of you have sat there? Please sit there. It's a really quiet little spot. When you're in there, you really don't hear the traffic or the noise. And it's really, you know, that was sort of a first experiment, is to put picnic tables out, but we didn't tell anyone that they're there. They are there for you to use. I know it's winter, but on a nice day. Next slide, please. This is the small lot, which is formerly the Trail Motel. There have been some wildflower plantings here. And this lot actually connects from Route 28 right back up to the sewage treatment plant. And here you see it from looking from Route 28 towards the sewage treatment plant. And then when you're in the small lot, looking across to the Alta Home Log when it was there. So you can see that these are all really physically connected, except they're divided by Route 28. Next slide. And then this is Stuckey's Embroidery, which, as I think many of you know, is the little beautiful spot where you have access to the creek. And so we suggest the next time you visit the IGA or the post office or the pharmacy, take a walk and spend a moment in each of these 4 sites. You know, in this creek lot, in the little picnic lot, and the Alta Home lot, and the wildflower lot that used to be the Trail Motel. See how you feel in it. See what you notice about that particular place, if there's something that strikes you about it. And then send me an email with your impressions. You've had my email. It's on the postcard, Cynthia Nikitin. We'll show you that again. But it's really important when you do this work to spend time in the sites. And I think that some people may have never really done that. So I invite you on a nice sunny day to kind of walk around and just sort of, you know, feel the air and breathe the air and just sort of get a feeling for what these places are like. All right, I am now going to turn it over to our fabulous students, Abilene Edelman and Sophia Odato.
Hello, I'm Sophia Odato, and I'm a 10th grader here at Onteora. I got into this program just because I've lived here like for the majority of my life, and I felt like I only knew surface level information about Boiceville. And I think this program really like opened my eyes to understanding Boiceville a bit better.
My name is Abilene Edelman. I am also a 10th grader here at Onteora. And I personally joined this project because I just really wanted to get involved with my community. And I wanted to be a part of something that is hopefully going to have like a lasting effect on Boiceville and on the people here.
Next slide, please. So during these meetings, we met with various people in our community. And the first people we met with were Native Americans in our community.
In this meeting, we really learned that how important it is to honor the land and the importance that the land has to people who have different customs and connections to it than we do. This land was not always ours, and it's still not completely ours. So it's really important to be gentle to it and to protect it to the best of our abilities. Next slide, please. So our second meeting was with Matt Savacci, Bobby Taylor, and Adam Bosch from the DEP, who are some local watershed experts.
So what we learned in this meeting was like the dynamics of plants and animals in the ecosystem, as well as their impacts on the community. What I took away from this was that invasive species like knotweed have a very big effect on the ecosystem and like negatively affect soil erosion and all the animals around. So I think that it's just that we have to be very careful about what we put into our ecosystem and like how we treat the area.
As we continue on with this project, we also want to really try and create a space where people can fully understand the value that this incredible ecosystem has on us and how lucky we are to have it basically in our backyards.
Next slide, please. So our next meeting was with a bunch of lovely people from the town of Olive.
In this meeting, we really learned about the deep-rooted generational importance of the land to these townspeople, and we also learned about the effects that the reservoir and building the reservoir had on their families. We really want to try and respect and understand that what happens to this land has a direct effect on their families and what happens to them and their daily life.
Next slide, please.
So our last meeting was with some Boiceville water treatment plant professionals back at the water treatment plant right behind the IGA.
So during this meeting, we talked about how important keeping our water clean is, and basically the different steps to treating our sewage. And something interesting that I took away from this was that in some ways, the water coming directly out of the plant is cleaner than our drinking water. I just thought that was quite neat.
Yep.
Next slide, please.
So what we're going to do is put you into breakout rooms with a facilitator. We hope when you're in there, just be mindful of the airtime. There's should be enough time for everyone to participate. Feel free to use the chat feature if you're not somebody who would like to speak out loud, to ask questions. We're taking notes on our side. Please put yourself on mute until it's time for you to speak, or else there'll be feedback. And obviously be respectful of everybody's thoughts. Next slide. We have not curated the breakout groups. All questions and concerns and points are welcome. We're giving priority to the citizens of Olive. If you're not from the town of Olive, don't live here, don't work here, don't own this here, or go to school here, or you are a town official or representative from a partner agency or organization, you're welcome to listen, hear what people have to say, but please give our residents a chance to speak first. And the school teacher and me will remind you to think before you speak. Are your comments timely, helpful, inspiring, necessary, and kind? So when you get in there, please, you'll have a facilitator, but please introduce yourself. Tell us where you live and tell us, what you love about this town and what your ideas are. So there will be an invite. You have to join a breakout group. So look, you're going to get something that's going to pop out, and click on it and it will bring you to a breakout group.
So we're now going to report back from our 3 sessions, and we're going to have Sophia and Abilene and Lori report back some of the things that they heard from you all. If your idea doesn't get reported back, fear not, we've typed them all up. We are keeping very good track of what everyone says. And that's part of the transparency and part of our sort of moving at the speed of truth. So if it's like, hey, Sophia didn't say my idea, We have it in our notes. We're just having to keep a little shorter, just because in the interest of time, but I hope you trust us. Okay, so we're gonna start with Sophia.
Yeah, I heard a lot of very, very insightful ideas. So one thing that like I really took from what you guys were saying was that the previous properties that used to be on the land parcels hold a lot of sentimental value. So like honoring the past buildings and the new things that we build is like very important. Also like keeping the cleanliness of our ecosystem and not polluting the water with more activity around it. I also heard a lot about wanting more open access to the creek because that's a very special thing to have. Opening up these parcels to tourism and just making it a destination. Also just like community building activities in these parcels of land. And also I had a good idea about an energy farm with like solar panels to fuel the school, and also a food farm to have like gardening and like people participating in planting and all that sort of thing. I also heard that we should have a lot of educational aspects around just to educate people that we are in a watershed, and that might be something that people don't know. I also heard an idea about a sports field on the parcels of land, a bocce court. What's did I hear? Oh, also like a park. A park was something that came up a lot, like just a nice destination off the bridge and somewhere like families can go and people go after school. And yeah, there were also other ideas, but the ones I wrote down.
Alrighty. So one of the biggest things that became like a pretty developed conversation in my group is that everybody really wanted to try and not just focus on like the parcels of land now, but also on what the town is going to be like in 10 years, in 20 years, and how it's going to affect like the future generations, and how we're going to make sure that it really is like still portrayed as such a wonderful town that it is now, how to kind of keep it like that. But still going off of that, some of the ideas that we heard for just the parcels of land that are more like ideas that we can kind of do now is an ice skating rink was a very popular idea, sort of like as a seasonal activity, as well as a badminton court or volleyball court or some other sports situation of some type. A community garden was mentioned a couple times. One person compared it to the one Halts, and I thought that could be really interesting. As long as it has a high fence to make sure that we keep out the deer so that growing stuff is actually possible. A lot of people talked about by the creek really loving how calm it is and how quiet it is there, and all like the bird and wildlife that you can see. So trying to maybe incorporate like a dock or a promenade of some sort with like a bird watching, like fishing, kind of like educational area where you can just be kind of at one with nature, I thought would be really nice. Someone also said seeing like putting some picnic tables and benches around there with like grills so that people could kind of just come and have their own food. There was also the idea of food trucks. So not only could you like kind of have your own food, and also we really try and support like the provisions and the Chinese restaurant and like the smaller businesses that are in Boiceville as much as we can, but also bringing in some more so that it becomes like the food is kind of widened a little bit in variety. A lot of people said something about a park, trying to kind of like just like create a nice spot for everybody to be. And another big one, this is probably the last one that I'll talk about, was trying to really find somewhere where it's in nature, but also it's a place for people to come together, for community members to gather together, such as drive-in movies or a stage, or like where there could be concerts or food trucks, or we could just go to the nearby stores, which would boost their support. But just having like a flexible space where people can maybe rent it out, or there could be flea markets, but we could all just come together as a community and really like enjoy our town and appreciate what it has to offer us. So, yeah.
Nice job, ladies. So to not be redundant, I think the things maybe I didn't hear as much. We said so many of those same ideas. We shared a lot of the same space. In addition to that Creekside space, but do more like Creekside classrooms and educational space at the water. There was a lot of focus on the history, signage, making sure we pay homage to who was here and what this town is about. A dog park, I'm not sure that either one of you mentioned. Again, spaces for just doing either crafting or just anything community to gather. Someone suggested a labyrinth. But we had a lot of the same, from skating to farmer market to concerts. And then I think the last thought I would share though is maybe just leave some space alone. Don't develop it, because and be mindful of the speed of the process, to take it one at a time and start small, because there's also other things that we have to take on that are inherent with this development, like parking and garbage and bathrooms. And, so what I heard was, take it slow and maybe develop it, it's evolutionary, not revolutionary.
Great. All right, I'm going to scoot over here. All right, that was fabulous. Really great, guys. And as I said in our group, if you didn't hear your idea presented, it has been recorded because we were taking copious notes. So, we've got all the ideas that you've sent us, that you've sent to me. Thank you so much for those of you who sent other ideas earlier. So it has been recorded. So now Karine and I are going to show you some actual projects that other communities have done who were in a similar situation to ours. So we're not saying this is what's right for Olive. We're not saying this is what we have to do. We're just going to show you some of the possibilities out there and kind of give you examples really that reflect in a lot of ways the ideas that you've already come up with. And we're going to ask for your reactions. So we are going to open the chat now. And if you have ideas or thoughts you'd like to share with our team, please put them into the chat. But when you look at these pictures, think about, what would benefit and serve the people of Olive most, because we all are our first priority. We're doing this for us. How do we create a community destination? What are the kinds of things that you think might help us achieve that? So think about, what resonates with you. Then we're going to have a conversation together after we show you the slides to see what you think, might work here, what resonated with you, or if you don't see a picture of it, what have you seen in other communities that you think would be perfect for one of these parcels? All right. So here's the first. These are pretty self-explanatory, I think. But, when we're thinking about games and lawn games, we can be really creative in terms of what we do, what's movable, what's portable, what's seasonal. And what's missing, we don't really have a disc golf course, I don't think, in Boiceville, and maybe we really need one. Okay. And then Karine, you're just going to jump in if you have anything that you want to add something. Outdoor play for children and youth. Youth is particularly important, which is why one of the reasons we're really thrilled to be working with the students and the school. Young people don't have a lot to do these days. They're going to school and they've got a million activities, but in terms of feeling like they have a role to play in the community or that they're welcomed outside. So we're kind of thinking about what can teens and tweens do in this space. When we look at the skate park, I don't want you to look so much at what it actually looks like. Like, we can't do that. That looks too permanent. But just think about the idea in general, as a concept. And also with the skate park, the way that it's designed, there actually could, in fact, maybe retain water. So maybe it's a basin that holds water, and then when it's dry, it's a skate park. But this kind of, does this resonate? Do you think your kids would be interested in this kind of more outdoor athletic play? Next slide. And I love that these ideas have come up already, seasonal markets, holiday markets, food markets, festivals, Olive Day. Sometimes if things get really big where they are, they need another venue. Could we have part of Olive Day over here? Maybe. Weddings is interesting because is this a space that we want people to be able to rent to basically close it off and say this is closed for the weekend or for the afternoon for a private event by a town member? I don't know. That's a conversation we can have in terms of, is it all public or can it be closed? Because that's an opportunity to, to make a little money on that. We have lots of artists, some of these look like they're really, really crowded. So just take that into consideration, but it's just really the concepts of these things, would they work? Are you interested in them? Would you go to them? And specifically, is there a particular spot that you think is perfect? Next.
Right. And I think we talked in our group about how this place can be sustainable economically, with the challenge of not having anything permanent. And I think these are like great example of possibilities.
For economic.
Yeah.
Seasonal activity, people did talk about ice skating. Maybe a learn to snowshoe, a learn to cross country ski classes, perhaps. We'd like the Christmas tree to be lit here. I would like that. I think that'd be really wonderful. As a short-term experiment to have a tree down here in Boiceville. There's a lot of people that do photography, nature photography, bird watching. It's really about letting people know that they can do that kind of activity here and inviting folks to do that. We talked a lot about the creek in our group and about access to the creek and how wonderful it is, but how we need to kind of protect that edge. So these are just what some other communities have done, where you sort of maybe build a platform out into the creek, or you build a platform where the sand is, so that you're protecting the riparian edge, but you're giving people sort of a safe, comfortable place to be. Or even boardwalks, on the edge, or a boardwalk through the wildflower meadow leading back to the creek. A place to put in your kayak. So these are just some thoughts from, again, if you've got comments or thoughts, or like, I love that idea, or where does that, just put stuff in the chat, please. Next. And then I think community activities is really a key, because again, we want, this is for ourselves. We want to build this and design it so it serves us. We can do stuff there. So outdoor fitness classes, outdoor dancing, whether it's line dancing or contra dancing, ballroom dancing. Does that sound fun? Community dinners. Does that sound interesting? Story time for little kids. There's a large, homeschool community here. Maybe those folks would like to have a place to bring their kids together when it's safe to do so, to do some homeschooling outside. Knitting and sewing and quilting. And we were thinking about the Stuckey's embroidery building, and as a tribute and a celebration of how amazing that business was and how important it was, to have quilting and sewing and knitting somewhere on our site, in homage to the Stuckey embroidery, or even on the Stuckey site. And repair cafes, with John Wackman created all along in New Paltz and all over our area. We don't have a repair cafe in our town. We don't have one at the library. I have a lot of broken stuff I need children to help me fix. So again, are these are kinds of community activities that we're thinking may resonate, with us, and we know that they work. Next. And I love the drive-in. I like the drive-in, walk-in, bike-in movies. It's not all driving. We should all be walking and biking, and a mobile health clinic, depending on what happens with Maverick, beer gardens, community. What is this picture? I can't see it. Concerts. We talked a lot about, even if it's just a small, combo, but we could have a structure that's mobile or portable where we could have concerts. If that's interesting to folks. Seems to work in a lot of other places. And then thinking about, picnic areas and pavilions, and sort of you figure out what the program is. What is it that you want to do in the space? And then you decide what are the amenities, the features, the physical elements that we need in order to make it possible to do that. So if you want to have a community supper, you need picnic tables. I think it's kind of obvious. But so we're kind of thinking about the design follows after we figure out what the function is and the programming of the spaces. But looking at intergenerational spaces, I don't know how we, what that would mean here, but a place where you have grandparents and you have parents and you have kids and they all have something to do in the same place. Whether it's listening to a concert here or having a picnic supper or playing in a sandbox, but really thinking about the makeup of our community and the multi-generationality of it, which is so wonderful, and how we can reflect that in these small spaces. Next. And ecology and education. I mean, we need to, this is all about sort of information sharing about where we live and what happens and what's happening with the climate, and getting people to understand how important and how fragile nature is. So with interpretive signage, we heard about people don't know where the Esopus Creek is. They don't know how important the Esopus Creek is, to this whole watershed area. But looking at how we can use these sort of nature-based solutions to help us with stormwater management and flood control. So flood management doesn't have to be, it can be attractive, it can be green. We can use rain gardens, which are beautiful plantings and attract pollinators that actually, slow the percolation of water so we don't flood. Stormwater and streetscape, as part of the DOT building a sidewalk, sidewalk up Route 28, hopefully to the school. Can we work in some stormwater streetscape elements into that so that the sidewalk itself and the plantings around it actually also help the water, keep it from flooding onto Route 28? So how do we sort of take these infrastructure initiatives that are designed to make us safe and reduce flooding that also have a co-benefit of being beautiful, wonderful for the, the natural environment, and wonderful for us to enjoy and look at. And food. Yes, food is very important. All of these things could happen in one spot. We could have an edible garden with orchards, demonstration garden. We could have community plots. Whatever we grow, we could sell. There could be pollinators, beekeeping. We could move the pumpkins we could grow the pumpkins that they sell at the church. I don't know. But this is just sort of looking at, this is all food related and agriculture, but it's also very much about building community and bringing people together. All right, I'm going to stop talking now. And just if folks we're going to have Dave kind of call on people. If what captured your attention, anything that you want to respond to, can you be involved? Can you help us with some of these ideas, making them happen? So now we're kind of opening the floor up for folks.
You can raise your hand or chat me and I can unmute you if you care to speak.
Okay. Great. Sure. Karine, can you stop? Should we stop sharing the screen so we can see more faces? Thanks.
Okay, Joe would like to speak. Should be able to unmute now.
Hi. I applaud a lot of the ideas, and I just stress to go slowly and to move slowly. And maybe one of the larger areas that can accommodate some of the wonderful ideas that you just showed can just happen in an empty parking lot where the food trucks can come in and then the other people can come in and stuff. I would just say to move very slowly and possibly have a 5-year plan. Then every bit of work that you do in that 5 years gets added on to the 10-year plan, and also a fiscal budget, and some people can do like the firehouse is doing, but buy a brick, build a brick or whatever. You can offset the cost of whatever you have to do, like for the gazebo area or for the food truck and the picnic tables. Maybe anybody can buy a paver. So like if there is going to be an outdoor entertainment, that can offset some of the costs. So that could happen over a course of time. So I'm hoping not a lot of people say, oh, let's go do this and then expect it done in 2 years. To have it logistically happen, it could happen over decades. That's it.
You're muted, Cynthia, if you're talking there.
I see Jody raising her hand.
Okay.
Okay, can you hear me? Hi. I love the idea of having one of these parcels serve as a rental space, because whatever is done, it's going to cost something. And over time, it's going to cost money too. So it's nice to kind of have that built in. But I would caution that everybody seems to want to be getting married up in the country right now. And if all of a sudden there is a cheap venue for that, it could be too successful. And it would be a shame if residents, were kind of boxed out of using the space because there's a wedding going on every weekend. So that's just my one thought on that. And that's it.
Okay, Alexander, should be able to unmute.
Hi, yeah. I kind of have a little bit of a similar thought that, I'm sorry, I don't remember the name the last speaker just said, which is, I do think it's important to bring in maybe some revenue, but it would be a shame if, you're not thinking to check the schedule and you go down there and then you can't use it. You know what I mean? So I love the idea of the holiday markets, of seasonal markets. I think that we could also integrate into that, not only like this time of year type of markets, but it could be, we could invite a powwow to go there. On that front, maybe there could be not permanent structures, but like pop-up type structures. Maybe there could be a Lenape center there for education and crafts from the Lenape tribe. Something that seems unique to the area. One of the things that I think about the multi-use space is that it would be great if it could be almost more like an amphitheater or something than a replication of Davis Park, where the town center is, because we already have the covered area there. So if there could be a way to create something that was not duplicative, and also just really focuses on the marrying the desire to create an ecosystem, but maybe having a light structure, multi-use commerce space as well. It sounds like a really good idea to me. Thank you.
Okay, Don.
Hey guys, and good evening, everyone, neighbors. Just a thought, as the Onteora High School students and their supporters have put together this on behalf of our township, if we could actively consider what the next steps are, including a timeline, as Jody and other neighbors have been saying, what do we want to do? We've got tremendous ideas have been put forth this evening that we've heard formally, and think of the hundreds of folks who couldn't make tonight's call and have equally as many good ideas. But to gather those ideas, and we probably need to get some sort of community support, voting, however we want to put that together, and put a timeline together of expectations, benchmarks. Will we say by the end of spring have the 5 key projects that we all agree upon? And that sort of thing, so that the envisioning becomes something that's organic, but still there are some real goals that are attainable. And all of this ultimately is going to take money, and where that money is going to have to come from in order to make all of these wonderful things happen, whether they're passive or active, whether they're private or public, or some partnership of all the above. But at the end of the day, will take resources and community support in tandem to make any of this happen. So again, thank you. Huge thank you again to Onteora High School students, the team that put it together, K&N, and truly getting a genuine sense of where we want to go in terms of a timeline for our community.
Anyone else would like to? Because that sort of takes us, Don, into like our perfect segue to our wrap up. Actually, you could go to the next slide. Oh, okay, so what are our next steps? We are working with the students through the end of this semester, which is in January. So we're going to sort of take some of these ideas with students and start working with them to come up with some sketches and some diagrams to see what this could all look like. And we're going to present these to the town in January and back to the public. I would love to do it in person, but it might be a Zoom again to get more feedback from you. So this is an iterative process. So we hear what you say. We're going to put some concepts and designs and drawings together to bring it back to you to say, did we get it right? What are we missing? And to get more input from you. This is a phased process, and we are in the process of sort of coming up with a proposal to define what the next phase of this work could be. So we are going to be taking it slow. It is going to be iterative, but we sure as heck would like to experiment with some stuff like that Christmas tree or whatever, or food trucks. We would really like the picnic tables that are there. We would like to experiment to sort of try some things out. And we want to hear voices from the other folks, the other hundreds of people who were not at this meeting. So if you can, invite us to talk to your group, your members. If you're meeting in December or early January, we would love to come spend 15 minutes. We wouldn't necessarily do the whole presentation, but we would certainly sit down and ask some questions about what your people, what your folks would like to see. Let us know who we should talk to. Let us know who we are missing. You have my email and phone number, so you can let me know when we might be able to come speak to your group. If you would like more information, more resources, if you'd like to be put on a mailing list, if you'd like to stay involved with the project, please put your email in the chat. We didn't ask for RSVPs. We don't have your phone numbers unless you contacted me. So if you would like to stay involved in this, please put your emails in the chat. And if you would like us to come and give a talk, please just call me, send me an email. So we are going to write grants. We're going to get money for this work, for these projects. It's not something that we're going to have to fund ourselves. But before we know what we raise money for it, we have to figure out what we want to do, you know? So that's what we're doing is, what is it you want to do? Is this really going to work? Is this what we all agree on? And then figure out where to get the money. So you come up with the vision, you bring your partners together to come up with the vision, and then they say the money finds you. And we'd also like to thank the Nature Conservancy for supporting our involvement in the cohort with Sydney and Edgemere and Brookhaven, learning from other communities that are recovering from floods and sort of making themselves more resilient and livable for the years to come. Tommy, would you like to? I just took your part. I'm really sorry.
I'm grateful. Thank you, Cynthia.
Okay. All right. I think we're gonna wrap. Yep. Do you want to say?
Yeah. No, I want to thank everybody. We got like some very good input, and we are very enthusiastic to work with the youth to kind of develop all this concept and get back to you and pursue the conversation. So it's just the beginning.
Yeah, Sophia and I also just wanted to say thank you guys so much for being here, for taking some time out of your night to listen to us. And thank you all for being so supportive. It was very nice and very appreciated.
I also have like a final thought. Like whatever we put here, it's really the community that'll make it special. So like moving forward, you could think, I could imagine myself doing like a fishing class here, or like, oh, I'd want to teach an art class here. Like keep that in mind, because that would be very, very beneficial to us.
Yeah, these spaces definitely cannot be important without the community trying to make them important. So feel free to just bring whatever you have.
Yeah. Great. All right. Thank you all. Happy holidays. Stay safe. Be well. Keep in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.